We have the editor-in-chief of The Atlantic, Jeffrey Goldberg. Jeffrey, it is great to have you on the show this morning. Thank you so much for joining us. And Joe, we've been talking for the first hour about all the different questions that including of Jeffrey in this group chat on Signal raises about the strength or lack thereof of the nation's national security.
Well, and just how careful they are about it. We had heard about how we need this warrior culture, we need this macho culture inside the Pentagon and inside our military. I think we need a competent culture as well. And there was a Republican who had said that mamas and daddies weren't worried at night about this. I guarantee you, mothers and fathers whose children are deployed right now, whether it's on submarines or ships or on military bases across the world, they're very concerned. Their children may go to combat situations with people that aren't protecting their lives, that aren't protecting the security of these operations. So yeah, there needs to be a lot more talk, not only inside the White House, but oversight committees on Capitol Hill. This is something that Senator Tom Cotton from Arkansas would be concerned about in any other situation. I certainly hope he will bring it up in some hearings that he has today. So that's the backdrop. But let's bring in Jeffrey Goldberg, of course, the editor of The Atlantic. Jeffrey, for those who haven't read in yet, please give us the background. How did this happen?
I mean, it's one of those things where you just get a message request on a messaging app, and you say, yeah, sure, message me, and then the next thing you know, you're part of the PC Houthi small group messaging group on Signal with Marco Rubio and Pete Hegseth and the head of the CIA and Tulsi Gabbard and all the rest. Happens all the time.
You thought this was a scam. You thought this was a 100%. Scam at first. Like you thought somebody was like setting you up to try to draw you into a conversation or get you to report on it. You did not believe this was actually President Trump's national security team talking about a war to come.
To be very, very clear, I did not fully believe it until Saturday the 15th. I received a text in this chain from Pete Hegseth detailing the war sequencing, the attack sequence, weapons packages, targets, all that sort of thing. And I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, well, and it gives us the time. It gives me the time that the attack is going to launch. And so, I sat and I waited. And I figured out, obviously, if there's an attack on Yemen in 2 hours, then I'm not in a kind of disinformation bubble or in a simulation of some sort. That these are just the top national security advisors of the United States telling each other that an attack is about to commence and talking about the elements of the attack. That's what really kind of bothered me, to tell you the truth. And then 1:45, 1:50 p.m. the attack commences, and I'm like, all right, well, that's a real signal group.
That's a real signal group. Tell us about your relationship with the National Security Advisor. When you received a request, was this something that surprised you? I mean, obviously, any off-the-record conversations we don't expect you to reveal, but let me just ask, was this unusual for you to receive a signal request from the National Security Advisor? I know it happens. It happens in Washington an awful lot, but from this administration to you?
There's the surface of what we understand in Washington about journalism and our relationship with the Trump administration, and there's the actual conversations that take place. I would say that I don't know Mike Waltz. I think I've met him twice. I think I met him at a conference or a party at a conference like a couple of years ago, and then maybe 4 or 5. I forgot when he got to Congress, but 4 or 5 years ago. I don't know him. I was happy, obviously, that Mike Waltz reached out. Obviously, I instantly thought, like we all do these days, well, if it is actually Mike Waltz who's reaching out, there's no harm in accepting a message request. All you do is get the message, and then you could see if he's trying to sell you, oil shares, or says that you're late on your whatever scam is being run. But it didn't strike me. It struck me as somewhat unusual because we all, and I in particular, have a somewhat contentious relationship with some people in the Trump administration, namely Trump, and so it's a little bit odd. But why wouldn't the National Security Advisor want to talk to a magazine editor, a magazine that covers national security issues?
Well, and Willie, of course, I like how Jeffrey put this for people at home wondering why anybody would reach out from this administration or past administrations to journalists who have written some things that they consider to be hostile. That is, in fact, how Washington works. People will go out and bark in front of a microphone and then go behind the scenes, and whether it's Signal or texting, try to explain the policy and what they're trying to push for.
Yeah, and Jeffrey, you rightly didn't publish, of course, the details of everything you saw in that exchange, so I don't expect you to repeat them here, but I do want to give you a chance to respond to what Secretary Hegseth said yesterday, effectively suggesting what you published in your piece was a hoax, going to the tried and true method and parroting sort of a poor man's version of Donald Trump, attack the source, attack the press. But then he did go on to say, nobody was talking about war plans. That's a quote from him, that nobody was talking about war plans. So if you can characterize at least what you saw in that text exchange.
Yeah, well, there's more than one text in that exchange. The CIA director came in with operational information. The National Security Advisor came in with after-battle assessments, or actually during battle assessments of the damage done, including the damage done to human targets and how those people were targeted. Again, I don't want to go into details because I don't think it's responsible to put out operational issues, and I don't understand all the sources and methods issues that are raised by this from an intelligence perspective. But no, I mean, I don't. I saw Hegseth's response yesterday. It was just unserious. Obviously, this would, by the standard vernacular understanding of what war plan means, it was, at 1:45, this is going to happen. At 1:52, this is going to happen. Then this happens. Then that happens. And then we do this. And then we do that. He's telling this group. He's letting them know probably more than they need to know. I mean, the Secretary of State, the Chief of Staff of the White House don't actually need to know which weapons packages are being deployed in what way. Obviously, right before an attack. If you're doing an after-action report, if you're sitting in the cabinet and you say, hey, Pete, how'd you pull that off? Maybe that's part of a conversation, but obviously, you know, at a certain level, you don't need to know the technical aspects. But no, there was what it was, and why it was so dangerous to kind of release into the wild of a commercial messaging app was these are the things that are going to happen in the immediate future, and some of these things involve obviously, you know, American pilots.
Yeah, so Jeffrey, by the way, the administration confirmed the authenticity of this exchange. The National Security Council did it as well. So we can put that to the side. That puts to rest what Secretary Hegseth tried to claim there. Were you surprised that no one else in that chat, I don't know, Marco Rubio, who chaired the Senate Intelligence Committee, Susie Wiles, who's the Chief of Staff, didn't say, whoa, 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 guys, not here with this stuff?
Yes. It's surprising. I think that you can become inured to believing, this is true for all of us, the believing that the chats you're in on the apps that you use are somehow more secure than they are. Obviously, Signal is pretty secure from an encryption standpoint. You lose your government secrecy if you mistakenly invite the editor of The Atlantic into the chat. Obviously, but you know, Signal, we all use Signal for good reason, but nevertheless, it is not supposed to be used by government officials to talk about national security. It is technically considered an unclassified platform, in part because it's on the other side of the wall.
Yeah, two things here. First of all, for Pete Hegseth or other members of this administration that think they can just brush this away and point to the press and think that MAGA supporters are not deeply concerned about this. They should probably talk, actually, to people who voted for Donald Trump several times, as I have over the past 12 hours, who are deeply concerned about this, deeply concerned about the recklessness, who actually believe that if they screw up this badly, that yes, the lives of our men and women in uniform are put in danger. So, and for those that while Jeffrey was talking, didn't see the Brit Hume tweet, he said, for God's sake, after Pete Hegseth, again, when Pete Hegseth went out, and he might as well have just been holding a sign up saying, I think people who voted for Donald Trump are stupid, because he insulted them by denying this. Brit Hume, Fox News emeritus political analyst, said, oh, for God's sake, the administration has already confirmed the authenticity of the message. Mm-hmm. So he takes a terrible situation and embarrasses himself even more. And I'm not exactly sure why he thought he could get away with doing that when the administration already confirmed it. But Mika, I want to talk about the people really quickly, and we do need to sort through this. There are people on that group that, again, I'll just say, if they were Fox News hosts or hosts of any TV show, perhaps they weren't read in on how important this was. I will say Secretary of State Marco Rubio had to know, because he ran the Intel Committee. And this is just something, again, as a lowly member of the Armed Services Committee in the House of Representatives, when you were getting information like this, you were going upstairs, you were going into a skiff, you were in the most private of circumstances. You didn't text this stuff around on a commercial app. You just, it's been commented before, if lower level people had done this, chances are good that they could possibly face charges. And of course, against the backdrop of all of this are so many of these people who spent a year and a half attacking Hillary Clinton, saying she should be in jail because she used a private email server.
Yeah. A couple of things. The cavalier nature of the texting, along with the incredibly in-depth information about what was about to happen, is staggering and raises the question, how many of these chats are out there on different national security issues? And if anybody in charge cared about our national security, they'd be launching an investigation into this right now instead of attacking the press. Like, this is an incredible breach of our own national, a self-induced breach. And also, I'm seeing the term leaked chat. This is not a leaked chat. This is a group chat that included our guest, Jeffrey Goldberg, the editor-in-chief of The Atlantic, who, and if it wasn't so damn serious, it would be laughable. But this group chat that included the editor-in-chief of The Atlantic, that was the mistake. Somebody, by mistake, included Jeffrey on a group chat. It was not leaked to the press. The press was included.
And Mika, the press was included, but, and I know the question has been asked here, Mika, but also everybody that was on that text chain. I don't know, I can't speak for other people, but I don't go into large group chains without looking at every one of the numbers and saying, okay, who am I talking to here? And that's for cable TV. These people are blindly going onto a group chat on Signal talking about where our troops are going. And I find it shocking that not one person said, okay, who's this guy with the Atlantic icon? I don't know what Jeffrey's. I don't know what Jeffrey's thing is.
It just said JG.
Well,
okay, very good. Yeah. So the question is, why wouldn't somebody, Mika, in that group ask, who is JG?
Yeah, and then that's the second question. The first question is, what are they all doing on Signal with all this information?